Hello everyone, so today we are going to see how to install how to start the Cloudera. So Cloudera VM I mean. So here I have the Cloudera VM. The Cloudera VM you can get from the Cloudera website. Now this is a starter series, so I'm just starting with Cloudera. So later on we can just make others, like other things like Scala and all the other things which are required. That also I will show how to deploy and in the cluster, and how to create a jar and all the stuff whichever is required in the Scala. So you learn a little bit of SBT. SBT is the tool which is same as Maven for people who know Java. So that's what we are going to do. Myself Arindam, and I'm also I learned Cloudera and all Hadoop technologies as well as machine learning. So we would be going step by step. So let's start. So this video is totally for the starters who would be starting with the Cloudera. So once you download the Cloudera, you start your VM, right? Then and this comes up. So I'm typically using the 5.8 version. So first thing that you need to do is, sometimes the window which is there, that does not start. So I would be going and I'd be starting with this thing. So see, once I click that, this comes up, right? So what I would do is I would just copy it, then I would open terminal, and there are two versions that they are giving. One is express and one is a enterprise. So we would go here with the express because I want to show you guys just the basic how it works. So it would take a little bit of time wherein it will start all the services, and it will take a little time. So I'll just pause the video and get back once it gets started. Yeah, just a second. Let me find my, yeah, there you go. So yeah, and that actually now the Cloudera has started, and you can see that this is the screen that would come up once we run it. So this is actually the interface from where we are going to access, right? So I'm going to right click it and I'm going to open the link, right? So let it open. Somehow it's a little bit of slow, some lag is there, probably. Yes, let's see. Okay, it's just opening up, I believe. So let it open up, and the screen that typically comes with a Cloudera beginners and tutorial, that also you can visit, which is really nice to getting started. But I'll just give a walkthrough of all the things, like what all are there and how to navigate. So meanwhile, while it comes up, see, and this Cloudera is one of the Hadoop distributors. So there are others like Hortonworks and MapR and all those. So all of them have this implementation, right? Now just to brief a little bit about this Hadoop, although this might be just a brush up. So Hadoop is nothing but, it's, we can say, operating system which is a file operating system kind of. So it has got something called HDFS, which is the Hadoop file systems, and then it's distributed in the sense, like, see, when you have a computer in your home, right, what happens is you are just connecting to one machine and you're working. Now suppose in distributed computing, what will happen is there are multiple machines, and you would not recognize that you are interacting with multiple machines, but under the hood it is going and it is using all the processors and all the stuff, right? So that's the underlying thing behind it. And the technology that is being used, or I would say the programming language that is coming up these days, apart from Java is of course always there, but mostly used is Scala. Now why Scala is used is because, see, Scala has got one good advantage, which is that it is purely functional language. And the help with the functional language is that, see, whenever suppose you're distributing a set of data, as I told, right? So distributed means there are multiple machines, and in that a job or something posts the details, right? And then it gets processed and come back. So one of the main thing of that would be mutability. Now when I say mutability, I mean that the data should not be like multiple times you run and you get multiple results, right? Like some processing happens somewhere and it different times it's different. It should not be like that. So that mutability is a fundamental of in a distributed computing, and for which we have something called high order programming and all. So for that, Scala is very good fit because it's functional. And functional programming, when you do, what happens is the data mutability is there. So typically we would see that in our future sessions, but that's how it works, is that you should not have a data that keeps on changing. So even when we go farther, right, and we will see the advanced levels, we would see that the underlying concept of distributed programming has been this only. So now the Cloudera comes up. So the password for this is Cloudera, username is also Cloudera. So it's opening up, it will take a second or so. So the Cloudera manager pops up and we can see all of the things that make this whole setup or this environment, so that we can play around and we can understand that what's all this, right? So they have given some things like already this hue and all as a in the top, so you can just go from there. So this is what typically a Cloudera screen looks like. And initially when you start, many of the services would be down, right, or they would not be working on things like that. So in those cases, what we need to do is that we need to start those services, right? So as you can see, there are cluster managers here. There are hosts for managing multiple hosts. So now what I will show is that I will show a single node, because I will not make things more of complex initially only, but later on we can go and we can just see other things, like how it works in multiple machines, and how in a computing can be done in a distributed manner, right? So I'm just pausing. So now what happened is the screen has come up. So you can see on our left hand side we can see few of the components, like we can see the HBase, HDFS, Hive, Hue, and all that. See, I will go through these one by one. So HBase hosts first is whatever the hosts are proper or not. So it would show you if there is an issue. So as I told, right, sometimes what happens when they will start, they will have some issue. So you can go about by two ways. First is you can go click this and suppress. That is one thing. And second thing which you can do, you can just restart, right? So restart, by restart I don't mean restarting this full VM. By restart I mean like I can go and I can click on this and it can just restart, right? So that thing I mean. Now there are multiple things here which we can see. So one of them is HBase. HBase is nothing but it's like the, I can say, the database where the data will be stored. Or see, there are people who are from the data warehousing environment, right? They can like they can correlate this thing, that HBase is like where the data would reside in a transactional system. It's not a it's not a data warehousing system, right? It's the final plus. Although nowadays people are using other databases like Cassandra and all, but HBase is one of them. And HDFS is nothing but this is where the file system, this is Hadoop file systems. So Hadoop file systems, what happens, this is like you have NTFS and all, right? Your, if you go to your operating system or in your computer, you can see what is the underlying file system you are using. So here we are using HDFS, that is throughout Hadoop world, this is the same, this is HDFS. So apart from that, you will have something called a hue. Hue is nothing but it gives you the interface, like for accessing all of these things, right? You will be going through hue. So we would see hue many times here. I'll be going through the hue in the later stage, but just now I want to go through all of the components. Another is Hive. Hive is nothing but the data warehousing. You can correlate it to the data warehousing database, but one thing we have to understand that Hive is not to be compared totally with the data warehouse. Why that is the case? Because see, in a typical Hadoop environment, what happens is you do Hive, you do anything, the data goes and sits in the form of files, right? And you cannot do a delete and update that fast, because it's at the end of the day a file, right? It's not going to work that way. So what happens is Hive is, can see a data warehousing environment where you can store unstructured data and all, but deletion is a big problem. Deletion, by that deletion I mean not deleting like once in a while you are deleting, that's fine, but you are going on transactional system and all, that's not possible, because deletion has a cost, I can say that way. So that is one of them. Then there is a Impala. Impala is nothing but something like I'd say a scoop which brings the data in. So there's others like key value store, which we don't use that much. There's a Uzi is nothing but people who have come from software background. There's something like a schedulers, right? Cron schedulers, or whoever has used some other scheduling tools like Control M or something. Here we use Uzi. What he can do is you can just make the line of execution, and you can also schedule it when it will be scheduled. So that is one part of it. Then there is something like Spark is nothing but see, people who know a little bit of MapReduce, they would know that the way Hadoop works, right, is generally till now was MapReduces initially. The MapReduce is a batch system, right? Batch, by that I mean that it will process the data, but it is not instant. You cannot make a real-time systems based on that. So that's where Spark comes in, and Spark is much faster and it's in memory, so it would be 100% much faster, right? And then we have a Scoop. Scoop is nothing but people who have worked on the database background would know there is something like a data loader, right? So that data loader is a Scoop, and so with the help of Scoop you can bring in structured data from a database and all those stuff. So we would be seeing all that, like how you can bring data from MySQL or Oracle or whatever. So apart from that, there is Yarn. Yarn is nothing but a resource manager. By resource manager I mean, see, whenever you are having a Hadoop, right, so that would be all this distributed system has to be managed. There has to be a manager, right, to manage all these resources, and whether it's working or it's not working, whether some node is up and all those stuff. So that could be done by Yarn. And same, so that's what sums up most of the important things that we have in this, right? And what will typically you'll see on the right hand side are the graphs which would show you the cluster of CPU and the networks. Okay, so what I would be doing now is I will just restart my this services. right? So that it starts, everything starts together. Then we would go and we would just see all the details one by one. Correct. Okay, so I would just pause it because it will start now. One sec. Hello. So what I've done is I've gone to the hue, and in the hue there would be all these sets will open. Once I click that and it opens, right? And there would be a query editor, there would be a browser. So hue, as I told, right, hue is nothing but all of the things whatever you can do in that Hadoop. It's like one stop shop kind of. So here you can go to Hive, Impala, DB, Pig, and then Job Designer. You can browse your data. You can have workflows. By workflows I mean, remember the Oozy which we were talking about, that Oozy workflows you can create, so that what happens is you can just schedule the, say, the Spark job or any other job for that matter. And there's also the others, like there's a file browser by which you can go and you can just check with the file systems, like the HDFS file system which I was speaking of previously, like. And there's also some other settings and all which you can do from this interface. So next what I will do is I will just go and have a look into what the file browser looks like and how the file browsing is. So there's a little bit of lag. I'll just stop the video here and then we will come back. So hope that works fine for you all. So see, now we have come back and this is the browser. So once we clicked this one right here over here, the file browser comes. So file browser is typically like a Linux machine file system, right? You can see user Cloudera, so we see their user and then there's some name, right? So likewise, like I had created some files and all that stuff, so we would see that how we can create a file and all here. Like it's the same way as we create probably in a Linux system. We have to go to the command line and we have to create a file and we have to create a folder. Although there are places we can create here as well, but generally we would go with respect to from the command line. We would see that I'd be doing that activity and we would see that how to create files and all. So my general motto will be, I would be going through the scoop, then I would load the data, I would show you then we ourselves would see like how we can go and import, say, 200 300 tables at one time, right? And it should be a configurable thing, right? So we would initially start with just importing one table at a time, then we would see how we can do that in parallel and how we can do faster. So that's the motto initially. Then we would go and play around with the data sets which we have, like generally I'd say with Spark and all. So most of the things I would be doing is will be Spark. I will not go into map reduce that much, and for that we need to know a little bit of Scala. So that Scala, I would be going through that Scala in my own local machines to a basic how to set up a Scala, how to do SBT, and how to go about things, right? So we would do that in the next series. This is just a starter, and if you have any questions, anything you want to ask, you can feel free to ask. We just go together step by step. Thank you. Thanks for watching the video.